Welcome Hex and Counter players to my presentation of Unternehmen Wintergewitter or Operation Winterstorm, which was the Germans' attempted relief operation of the Stalingrad pocket. In the top right of the map is the Stalingrad pocket with the three important airfields being Gumrak, Pitomnik and Karpovka. Discussions between Manstein and Paulus. Paulus indicated that he believed the 6th Army had enough fuel to break out towards Bazanovka via the main road. And Bazanovka is down here in the south of the presently displayed map. So I'll come back to Bazanovka in a moment. As we progress further to the west, we get to Kalach with the famous bridge, and then further to the west from there is the Chur River. Manstein's original plan was to have a pincer operation with the westerly pincer coming from this area here near the Chur River. This was a pretty obvious place as it was closest to Stalingrad, a distance of about 30 kilometres. Of course, the Russians realised this and put this area under so much pressure that the idea of any advance from the Chur River was just out of the question. So, as we now progress south, note the Mishkova River and the Aksai River. And finally, where the Operation Winterstorm emanated from was Kotelnikovo, down here in the south of the map. So Manstein's task was to cross two major rivers, the Aksai and the Mishkova, and possibly link up with the 6th Army. So there's Bazanovka there in the top of the display, and the distance between there and the Mishkova is about 50 kilometres. It's interesting to note that post-war analysis suggests that Paulus may have had twice as much fuel and ammunition as he thought he had, because all the quartermasters were under-reporting their holdings, so they didn't have to give any away. So let's say they could have made Bazanovka another 30 kilometres. It could have been a close run thing if the Germans got everything right and their timing was perfect. Obviously, we'll never know, but our task in this scenario was to see if we can outdo the original 57th Panzer Corps and launch our relief effort of the Stalingrad pocket from Kotelnikovo. So scenario 12-12-01, Operation Winterstorm with the recommended defaults. Kotelnikovo, 180 kilometres southwest of Stalingrad, December 12, 1942. Operation Winterstorm was quite predictable. As far as the direction from whence it would come, Zhukov had predicted a two-pronged attack from the Chur and Kotelnikovo areas. However, the Soviet 5th Tank Army was along the Chur, which ruled it out as a start line. The German 57th Panzer Corps was quite weak, but was given 6th Panzer Division, which had been refitted in France, and also the 17th Panzer Division was due to join the Corps, but was held up for 4 days. So Manstein was promised all sorts of things, but he only got about half of what he was promised. So let's now have a look at the forces that we have at our disposal. The 4th Panzer Army was in charge of the Wintergewitter forces, and these were commanded by General Hoth. The main strike force was the 57th Panzer Corps, and they were commanded by General Kirchner. So the main strike force for the 57th Panzer Corps was the 6th Panzer Division under General Rouse, and they had arrived in theatre after being rested and refitted in France. They were also supported by the 23rd Panzer Division, which had already been in theatre and was somewhat banged up by action, but they were still a formidable force. The Romanian forces were part of the 4th Army, and in particular the Romanian 6th Army Corps. And they in turn had the 1st Division Infantry, 2nd Division, 18th Division Infantry. Further to the east we have the 8th Division Cavalry, and then in the southeast we had 2 divisions from the Romanian 7th Army Corps. So just for a moment we'll select the 18th Division. We'll select the command range. Notice how these 2 units here in the east are outside the nominal command range. So if we select this unit here, you'll see that his regimental title is in white. So that means it is in nominal command range. These 2 chaps here have their title in yellow, which means they're outside the nominal command range and therefore are considered to be detached. So that means they lose 1 point on their morale as far as recovering from disruption, etc. Their replacements are only 25% of what is normally applied to units in their division, and if they spot for artillery, the artillery attack only goes in at 50%. So it would be advisable to move this headquarters here, perhaps a couple of hexes to the east, depending on where you want them to go. So if these chaps were going to go to the northeast up this road and rail line, well then you'd be wanting to move your headquarters to the northeast, and these guys here on the fringe, make sure you push them to the northeast as well. It's interesting how the 18th Division Infantry is also in yellow. So their higher formation is of course the 6th Army Corps, Romanian 6th Army Corps. So if we go to there and double click, you'll see it is in fact 3 hexes outside the nominal command range. So in our early moves we obviously need to move the 6th Army Corps further to the east so that you can get these guys within the nominal range, because all these types of details have effects on supply, morale checks, command, out of supply, and all those sorts of issues. So there you go, a quick chat on detached units and the chain of command. I'll be loosely trying to follow the historical routes the Strike Panzer divisions took. The first stage was the advance to the Axay River. The 17th Panzer Division arrives on the 16th of December 42, but its first day goal was to reach General Ovsky. The 6th Panzer Division followed the rail line to the northeast before it eventually turned further north to the steel bridge at Zalivsky. And the 23rd Panzer Division, it went towards Kruglyakov. So they did have some troubles reaching these targets on the first day, that is the 6th and the 23rd. So we'll see how we go as far as the historical timetable. The weather is snow conditions, visibility 1 kilometre, and it looks like tomorrow we have a high chance of mud conditions, which isn't good news. As mentioned earlier, these are the units starting in the southwest of the map, near Kotel Nikovo. The Germans are the grey counters, and light blue is the 6th Panzer Division. The Romanians are on the olive counters, and the 1st Infantry Division is lime green, 2nd pale blue, and the 18th the aqua blue. So some scenarios you get to see a bit of the enemy, and in others like this one with snow you don't. So it's just a matter of getting your recon units mailing and then moving them forward. So that is in fact what I did, and this is how the turn looks at the end. So starting at the left hand side, you can see the 1st Romanian Infantry Division just moving north and making contact with the 2 Russian units, and the 6th Panzer Division detachment, if you like. They're moving along the river and basically encircling the Russian units that are there. So what you should always try and do is defeat fortifications by movement. Some scenarios will just be wall-to-wall fortifications, mines, etc. But often you'll be given the chance to try and defeat them by movement, by moving around, surrounding them, which then those trap units, they lose morale values, and it's easier to wear them down, particularly when you have Axis allies as the units trying to do the wearing down, because they're very vulnerable. You have to treat your Axis units, Axis allies, very differently to your German units. In fact, now that I'm looking at the map, I'm wondering if I should move the Romanian 2nd Infantry Division more along the westerly side there to support the 1st in destroying those Russian units, because they move very slowly and it's going to take them quite a while to move across the road where the 6 Div units went. My original idea was the Romanian 2nd Infantry Division was going to tie up the Russian units and release the 6 Div units to charge further north, but we'll see how we go. In the centre there you can see with the 6 Div units, once again the same idea as to the left, is try and surround the fortifications and force them to either try and break out, in which case they evacuate their fortifications and they lose all those defence benefits, or they can stay in place and then we lock them in, and hopefully I can hand them off to the Romanian 18th Infantry Division to tidy up while the 6th Panzer Div gets on with getting to the Axay River. We have made contact with the opposition here, being the 51st Army. That was considered to be a rather weak army, and in fact it was not very well represented down here in towards Kotel Nikovo, so the Germans didn't expect a lot of opposition initially, and that is how the initial advance worked out as well. Right, so let's have a quick look how the 23rd Panzer Division went. So once again, I was able to identify this little route here along the river, which allowed some of my 23rd Panzer Division units to break through there. A bit more of a difficult breakthrough. I only managed to get through on one side, but we'll have to make the decision about how fast we want to go north. Knowing that we have mud coming up in the next day, obviously moving as far as we can today is going to be pretty important, but to a degree we need to probably get rid of these guys here. So it's a bit of slow going through there. At least we can attack this chap here from a higher location. You should always try and attack from higher locations and avoid, like the plague if you can, attacking up hills. So these guys here, you may jump up to there and there to attack this guy. Come around the back, this guy's vulnerable to attack from higher location there. Notice this guy here, I put him up onto the same level as that one. He ran out of movement there, so I could probably move him to there. So I'd only attack this one if I can get round him behind him. This one here is on a little peninsula, so as I move these guys up, I expect to meet the Soviet defence in roughly the line. You can see the pattern. There's probably going to be one there, maybe one, or maybe back along this ridge is where I would put it if I was putting the defence. Meanwhile, our Romanian 8 cavalry, same principle here. We bumped into these units here. Once again, see how this guy's on a higher level and that defence is down low, so we get the advantage attacking down and he gets just a disadvantage of attacking up. So you keep looking for those sorts of small advantages, particularly for your Axis partners. Try and give them some chance because they are fairly frail. I'm also rushing up these guys to this area here in the hope of getting a breakthrough one of these areas here. Further to the south, it's not so promising. We're managing to get around the outside here, but it looks like a bit of a slow slog to break these guys down. We'll just have to get more information and see if we can break them down and disrupt them somewhere. Something else you should also do in these larger scenarios, this is the Luftwaffe division which is coming in as reinforcements. Notice here how I was able to get some units on the trains because they started in a rail hex, so I could immediately put them into rail mode. Check the parameter data, rail capacity factor to see if you have rail capacity. So on to turn 2, which is 0800 hours, 12 December 42. 1 out of 15 HQs out of command, that's not so bad. 10 artillery units unavailable because of defensive fire. So that looks pretty straightforward. So let's have a look at the map. So after the Russian turn, we can always check our disrupted units. This highlight here, disrupted or broken. So as expected almost for our Romanians, as if they're against a Russian unit, they'll end up being broken. Okay, that artillery unit's still broken, which is good. This guy here, he charged from over there. Okay, so he's disrupted. Let's move around. Okay, this Russian unit got disrupted, so that's good news. If we can get behind him. I would much rather have this chap here disrupted, but there you go. Moving across here, nothing much. Oh, of course, disrupted. Oh, double disruption, and this is the problem of trying to arrange an assault on these guys, is keeping your Romanians from disrupting. Go down. And have a look at the bottom here. Rightio, so no disruptions down here, so that's very interesting. Okay, so let's go back up the top. We'll turn that disruptions off. Right here, so the question for the German units is, how long do we keep them in this part of the map? Cleaning up these isolated units. As the Germans discovered during the war, it's one thing to isolate units, it's entirely another one to actually reduce the pockets, because it costs you time, and time was always the enemy of the Germans, particularly early in the peace. Like in 41, Operation Typhoon, Barbarossa, etc. Time was what they couldn't afford to lose, and a lot of what the Russians did was about delay back then. And in these games, it's always that tension for the German player. So I'll go through now and do this turn, then I'll get back to you. This is the Soviet oblique AI turn for 0800 hours. As you'll probably see, the defending units have a shot. Encircled units try and have some sort of attack to get out. Pretty much the routine sort of AI moves. So I don't really intend to show you the routine Soviet moves. If something special happens, a particular formation turns up, or a breakthrough is made, that sort of thing, I'll show it. But otherwise, I'll comment on the moves during my turn. So we're now moving on towards the 10 o'clock move, or turn 3. I thought of some of these time zones. I might add some comments from the War Diary of 11th Panzer Regiment, just to give a bit of flavour, and we can compare where we're up to. Arrival at Verkhney Yablochny. The attack commences, initially according to plan and without enemy resistance, but then becomes stuck due to problems in the terrain. After withdrawing, the regiment deploys again towards the village, which it captures after a short fight against anti-tank and infantry weapons. 2 enemy tanks manage to escape at first, but are destroyed by anti-aircraft guns flak at the Panzer barricade at Hill 124.7. So here is the weather report for 1000 hours, and probably the most interesting thing is that visibility is still only 1 kilometre. So this is the map after my 10 o'clock turn. I have a sneaking suspicion that the first div, their role in this battle might be just pinning these guys in place. They don't seem to be making much progress as far as disrupting them or reducing them, but certainly we can hold them in that position. And I'm guessing that the second div may have a similar role with these chaps down here, although I am keen to move these on from this location, or just destroy them entirely, so that the freeway, or the main road if you like, primary road, is clear for supplies and that type of thing. The Romanian 18th Infantry Division is oozing its way to the north. I'm hoping that as they get up here, they can perhaps ooze over towards Gremenchaya and get around the rear of these units here. So it might be a slow old process. The trains are arriving and unloading from the Luftwaffe division, so they seem to be going okay. So as I mentioned, these guys are costing me time getting rid of them, but that's just the way it goes. I have been pushing all my reconnaissance units and the headquarters forward. This here is Verkney Jablonski that I mentioned in that briefing. And in fact, recent turns I've been pushing my reconnaissance vehicles way up to the north, so they're here, and General Ofsky's only a turn away. If I want to go there directly or reduce those, I'll make that decision in the next turn. Moving across, you can see just cannot get. I've made these guys disrupted, and that's progress. So I'd really like to push these guys out of here if I can, because that will then allow the 18th Infantry to surround these guys here, isolate them. Meanwhile, the 23rd Panzer Division significantly reduced this hex here this turn. Once again, I'm keen to clear this hex here because it'll be a transportation hub for the virtual supply trucks going towards the northwest. I believe there's still a Soviet unit in this hex here, so I'll have to clear him out as well. So that may even disrupt the 23rd Panzer Division going further north. Once again, I've sent some units towards the north, and as luck would have it, excuse me, I've actually located the 51st Army headquarters. Also have some of my motorcycle units up here, and they've spotted this T-34 unit heading towards us. Further north, my premier reconnaissance unit, he's managed to get to that hex there and have a look at Kruglikov. I was tempted to go across, but this tank unit turned up. So I've put him here in this village, and I'm going to hope that I can break through there or get some reinforcements. Now Salvisky, this is the steel bridge that the 6th Panzer Division is supposed to be crossing further down the track. And in fact what they did after Verkhney Jablonski is go across to Chilikov, and then they went up to Zalvinsky, but we may not exactly go that path. Now this was the 6th Panzer, what I call the 6th Panzer Detachment in the west, that went up and it occupied Verkhney Kurmayskaya. Nothing there, so I'm getting keen to bring them back this way. There's only a secondary bridge there. We've got a steel bridge there they can get across, so I may have to sort of run them all the way up here. So they've been a bit out of the war, but I guess that I've also been able to clear this western border of our advance. So moving further across and down, I finally got this guy disrupted. I have my 23rd Panzer Division detachment, if you like, in a position to do an assault, and as you can see they're going from high ground to low ground, so there's an advantage there. So even if I just push those guys out of there, that means I'm then threatening to take Dorganov, and that'll make this line very questionable for the Soviets, I suspect. So we'll see what they do. These guys here also have the support of the artillery here, so that'll help them out significantly. In the south, it's been a bit of a scratch my head over this side. Managed to isolate this unit here, but blowed if I can do any damage to him. So all these cavalry units, I've decided to try and use what momentum or movement factors they have. Perhaps look at isolating this part of the front and wearing it down that way. I'm definitely not going to make any progress trying to go straight through. I decided with these chaps over here, the 4th Div Infantry, to have a look at this forward. Fortunately, there's no one there at the moment, so they'll get across there, and once again, hopefully they'll marry up with these chaps, isolate all these guys, and then hopefully wear them down. But that's going to be a slow old process, I suspect, and we don't know what's in there, given our visibility is only 1 kilometre. Something that's that is worthwhile doing is making sure your headquarters is close to your units, and as you can see here, I'm sending all my disrupted units to the headquarters in the hope that they get brought out of disruption. So that's something you really need to think about with the mining units. Well, I'll go off now and do the Soviet turn. If anything really interesting happens, I'll let you know when I do my next turn. Okay, until then. Welcome back to turn 5 or 1400 hours, 12th of December 42. As you can see in the command report, we have quite a few disrupted units, mainly being Romanian units at this stage. So an interesting development over here. This unit vacated its trench and attacked my artillery unit, and it knocked over quite a few guns, so that was, in some ways it's unsatisfactory, but getting him out of that trench gives me a chance to knock him over, and he's already disrupted. The 2nd Infantry Division's oozing up over here. This chap here's just vacated his trench here, so that should give me a chance to enter that hex and lock him in there and give me a better chance to try and break him down. These guys here, the last turn, reduced them heavily, and I expect these guys to fall this turn, releasing these 6 Panzer Div units to travel north. So while we're on 6 Panzer, let's have a look north. So these chaps are travelling north. We bumped into a couple of units around here. I think there's actually another one in there. Once again, disappear because of the visibility factor, but we'll certainly be able to knock these 2 units off in pretty good time. And further to the north, actually, I've been able to get my recon vehicle to capture General Ovsky. I think that means we're possibly ahead of schedule, given it's only 1400. But we'll see how we go. Just to remind you, the other target is Zalivsky. So I'll go back further down to the 18th Romanian 18th Infantry Division. They're oozing across from west to east. Looks like these 2 Russian units have vacated their hexes, so I'm just hoping that my slow moving Romanians can capture them, because or contact them, because they'll certainly travel better than the Romanians, that's for sure. So we're looking to capture Gremchaya in the first instance to try and trap these units here. Not having very much luck at all breaking through these guys. 23rd Panzer Division, they defeated that group of Russian units here. The one that was here is obviously vacated, so he must be moving in here somewhere. So we do have a bunch of Russians in there. The other 23rd Panzer Division units have been breaking to the north. You might remember I was chasing the headquarters of the 51st Army. I guess he's moving up this road somewhere, so I'm sure they'll try and trap him again. We had that Russian T-34 unit around here somewhere, so he's probably still around. The unit that I had here in Kruglikov, I got him out of the trap there and moved him up to Verkhney Kumsky, which is a famous area in this battle, so we should see if this triggers some Russian response. But that should be Verkhney. I understand it means something like populated area, so populated area called Kumsky. But the populated area could be, a village, a town, a city. It doesn't give any indication of size, it just means populated area. So going further down the map, some good news here. We managed to get push this unit out of his trench here. Obviously pretty weak there, below 100 men, so I'm reasonably confident that we'll be able to blast him in this turn. Then that should free our cavalry to pin these guys against the river at least. Further south, it's all a bit of a mystery. We've lost contact with a lot of our Soviet units because we're not adjacent to them. Because every time we were down here with this cavalry, they just got disrupted all the time. But I managed to get over the causeway over here. They were intercepted by this cavalry division, but I'm pretty sure I'll be able to fight these guys off. Then the theory is to maybe go up this road, have these guys come around this way and see if we can trap these guys in something of a pocket. But with visibility being so low, we're just going to have to feel our way along. So that is the state of the nation. So quite positive here. 18th Infantry Division is a bit caught up here, but hopefully these other chaps will capture some of these guys in a pocket. And I think that's about as good a contribution as they can really do at this stage. Our Luftwaffe division's almost arrived, so we can start assembling them. And I'm thinking about just pushing them along the railway road to the northeast. So it should be an interesting turn to see what comes up for the 1400 turn 5 turn. So when I finish that, I'll get back to you, or I may even finish episode 1 here. Don't want to make the it too long for you to bear watching. So we'll hope this different format for Panzer campaigns is a bit, maybe moves a bit faster, a bit more interesting. I'm not sure. I'm just sort of guessing this as I'm going along. But I hope you find it a change from the usual presentation we have on the web about Panzer campaigns. So anyway, if this is the end, I'll see you in episode 2 at some stage. Thanks.